Good Monday afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 69, nice, of the Sports Note on YouTube. We actually had a lot of bombshell news kind of come out of the last really 24, 36 hours in the media world. We actually saw Don Lemon get fired from CNN earlier today. We saw Jeff Shell, the CEO of NBC, basically get let go. We saw Tucker Carlson on Fox News get let go, and again, those are in the realm of news. But in the world of sports, we never really saw anybody kind of get let go. The Aaron Rodgers trade became official earlier today. Mike and I will talk about that, and I'll address that towards the end of this episode. But somebody who's not going anywhere is the athletic director at the at New Mexico State University. Athletic director Mario Moccia just got over the weekend a 5-year contract extension where when the deal matures in 2028, he'll be paid $425,000 a year for that final year by the university. Moccia, the deal was basically signed by New Mexico State Chancellor Dan Arvizu, who was one of Moccia's supporters, and Arvizu's stepping down on June 30th after his contract. Well, actually, I take that back. June 30th, Arvizu's contract to remain chancellor at New Mexico State University was set to expire and was not going to be renewed. But Arvizu decided to step down early over the weekend after extending Moccia. The reason why a lot of this seems very, very fishy with the timing is in the wake of all the scandal that I imagine some of you have read about going on at New Mexico State, most importantly with their basketball programs, both men and women's. Back in December, a player on the roster, Michael Peak, was involved in a fatal shooting of a New Mexico State student after a New Mexico State New Mexico basketball game. Now, no charges were filed, as it was determined after investigation by state officials that Peak was acting in self-defense, as he was lured to the New Mexico campus by 3 students and a teenage girl who essentially were targeting him. So Peak was removed from the basketball team, where head coach Greg Heyer was in his first season after taking over for Chris Jans. Now, Jans got New Mexico State to the second round of the NCAA tournament last year in a very successful season. Their first year under Heyer was absolutely atrocious. They were 9-15. They only had 2 wins in conference in the WAC coming off of that season, and then you have the domino set in motion here with Peak, and then Heyer and the entire coaching staff was put on administrative leave in early February after reports came out of complaints filed by several players, including, I believe, even one former player, of hazing, and none of which were. Several complaints were filed, but nothing really done about them. And there was also, I believe, at least one, if not 2 of those complaints filed were of a sexual hazing nature by teammates. Then more information comes out over the weekend that ESPN obtained additional documents stating that the men's basketball program wasn't the only one receiving such complaints. There was a member of the women's basketball program who was sexually harassing a student. The men's basketball program, after a 78-67 loss on February 10th against Grand Canyon, that would actually end up being their final game of the season. Now you might think, okay, getting ready for conference play or whatnot. New Mexico State still had 6 games left on their regular season schedule, and in a time frame where we had the entire 2020 NCAA tournament and conference tournaments, for that matter, shut down when the pandemic first really kind of exploded on U.S. soil. And then 2021, we had the tournament in the bubble. Certain teams opted out. Last year was a bit of a return to normalcy. And then now, for an entire program to just shut everything down, with their season not yet completed, they did not take part in the WAC tournament, which ironically enough, Grand Canyon went on to win, only to lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament to Gonzaga. Shows you just, you could think that the university could be proactive because they really didn't have any other choice. But again, it's the fact that they didn't have any other choice. And for the chancellor, for Arvizu, to extend Moccia for 5 years at 6 figures a clip, and now again $425,000 in that final year, assuming Moccia stays the entire 5 years, with everything that's going on within both of their money-making programs, because New Mexico State does field football, does field multiple other sports, but it's their basketball programs which bring in probably more revenue than any others in the school. But the timing on this was extremely suspect. They still have not hired a new coach, and you'd figure it would be prime opportunity to do so. But what coach is going to want to go there and take over that program, considering this was something that the university did, and more documents are coming out? And as things come to light and the NCAA continues any ongoing or potential upcoming investigation, there could be sanctions levied against the university. There could be a lack of institutional control, something that we saw cost Ohio State a postseason opportunity in football a few years back. We saw it with Louisville, where it resulted in their national championship getting stripped from within the last decade. We've seen issues with Kansas. We saw with everything going on with the with that scandal, where it was enveloped with schools such as Arizona, ended up costing Sean Murray his job. But this is not something that's going to be going away anytime soon in Las Cruces. And for the university to extend Moccia for, I guess, doing a good job and getting out in front of whatever this was, but the fact of that it even was allowed to get this far, if you see the Blue Note blog, you see that I actually made the comparison, although it's not. I definitely don't want to say, and please do not twist my words as I'm explaining this. This is not to the severity and the negligence of the Jim Jordan Ohio State wrestling team sexual abuse scandal. But if any of these allegations on either side have any sort of legs to them, and if there's any sort of truth, you almost have to consider the correlation. So Jordan right now is gum on the bottom of the shoe of American democracy. He is a scumbag of a human being. He's an absolute disgrace and abortion of a United States congressman, and thank God he does not represent my district here in Ohio. Um, the the Penn State scandal also comes to mind as well. And again, there's not there. It's not one thing to put sexual assault or hazing above sexual abuse of minors or women. It's sexual misconduct regardless. There are no gray areas. It's you can't really levy difficulties of degrees, especially at the collegiate level, with something of this nature, because you're talking about 9 times out of 10, you're talking about minors at some point. You're talking about coaches against students. You're talking about uh, coaches against potentially camps, like we had with the Penn State issue. We actually have school officials against 18, 19, 20-year-old students. They're not even old enough to drink yet. Again, certainly not minors, but they're not full-blown adults at that stage of their lives. And for an athletic director, again, for something of this nature to go unreported or at that point undisciplined, shutting the program down for 6 games when you weren't going to do anything anyway, firing the coaching staff for not following up. Maybe actually get things right with your entire athletic department and your basketball programs before you extend your athletic director 5 years, only to actually have your school chancellor who signed off on it step down 3 months early the exact same day. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Mike and I had a great show on Saturday night. We previewed the top 12 picks of the NFL draft. We will be back with you guys live Thursday night at 9 in our usual weekly slot going forward here for a lot of the first ever live reaction show in the near 18-month history of the Wise Guys. It will be episode 25. It's gonna be a big deal for the two of us hitting that milestone. It's going to be there's a potential we could be joined by a guest, possibly even two. At some point, by the time we go live, several picks will have already been made. So we'll actually be reacting to those. We'll be grading where they were, comparing them to where we anticipated some of these guys going on our show this past Saturday night. But we look forward to seeing you then. I will be back with you hopefully a little later on this week, even without the Wise Guys show. And everybody take care. Have yourself a great rest of your night.